on SoccerThe NSC Olimpiyskiy Stadium in Kiev will host the Champions League final on Saturday. Credit Sergei Dolzhenko EPA. Via Shutterstock May 21, 2018 Maria Garcia Mellicer did not even know if Real Madrid, the team she calls her lifelong obsession, would be playing in the Champions League final in Kiev when she began planning her trip from Miami to Ukraine. She had booked the final leg of her journey, a flight from Madrid to Kiev, before the semi-final matchups had been revealed, and identified a place to stay in Kiev before the second leg of Madrid's semi-final against Bayern Munich was even played. She instructed her cousin to confirm the reservation the moment the final whistle confirmed Madrid's place, but in the excitement of Real's nail-biting victory, the cousin promptly forgot. The next day, Garcia Mellicer took charge. She found an apartment in Kiev, paying for an extra night to make sure of the booking, and paid for the rest of her flights: Miami to Stockholm, Stockholm to Madrid. She did not know for sure she had a ticket that would only be secured later through South Florida Premier, an official Real fan club, but she knew she had to be there. She had made the trip to Cardiff last year, where Real beat Juventus to retain the Champions League trophy, and had every intention of seeing the team try to raise it for the third year in a row. "Nothing compares to seeing your team in a final," she said. Everything was in place, a reward for Maria's being super proactive, until it wasn't. The next day, Maria saw reports on Twitter of fans having reservations cancelled. She called Hotels.com, the online company through which she had made her booking, and was assured everything was fine. The reservation had been paid, but if she wanted peace of mind, she was told, she could check with the apartment rental company in Ukraine. She sent an email. A few hours later, one came back, informing her the reservation had been cancelled because of an error in the booking. The apartment was now back on the market, she said, but for 5 times the price. Hotels.com offered to pay the difference, but it was too late. The apartment, in the meantime, had been leased at the inflated rate to someone else. Maria had flights, and a match ticket, but nowhere to stay. And Kiev was, by that stage, pretty much fully booked. "I had this feeling of impending doom," she said. "It took all of the joy out of going to see my team in a final." Hers was not an isolated case. In the 2 weeks since it was confirmed that Real would face Liverpool in Saturday's Champions League final, countless stories have emerged of the difficulties fans of both clubs are facing in making it to the game. Hotels, of course, are always a problem. Prices skyrocket, driven not only by demand from ordinary fans. Each club was given a little more than 16,000 tickets, and will bring many more supporters to the city, but because UEFA, the competition's organizer, reserves vast blocks of accommodations for its officials and sponsors. That price inflation has happened in Kiev. Some rooms were listed at 10 times their usual value. But worse still, as Garcia Mellicer experienced, were those who were told that their reservations had vanished, but were available to rebook at significantly higher prices. Residents of Kiev have been so appalled by the situation that locals have been inspired to start Facebook groups offering fans free accommodation. Victor Kailimar, the founder of One Kiev Free Couch, told the BBC he was shocked and ashamed by the hotel's price gouging. That kindness has been noted, of course, but just as difficult has been finding a way to the city at all. Real is subsidizing the travel of 1,000 members of its La Grada fan group, but, as Garcia Mellas had put it, everyone else is on their own. Regular flights into Borispol, Kiev's international airport, are fully booked, and have been for some time. Dozens of aircraft have been chartered in both Liverpool and Madrid, but that has not solved the problem. Borispol's limited capacity means all the available charter slots are taken. So many fans are expected to pass through the airport that some have been warned to expect on their way home from Kiev. A policy of free boarding, in which fans are simply placed on the first available flight back as they arrive at the airport. Image Misha Sobolev and his siblings may have to make room this weekend when Liverpool and Real Madrid fans arrive in Kiev. Credit Valentin Ogarenko/Reuters fans, of course, try to find a way. Some are flying in through Minsk, in Belarus, and then traveling overland, or even coming through Donetsk, in the east of Ukraine, in territory still afflicted by sporadic fighting between the Ukrainian army and pro-Russian separatists. Many, though, have had no choice but to admit defeat. Real received only 25,000 applications for tickets from club members, down from more than 40,000 for Cardiff, wanting to go to Kiev, and reports in Spain over the weekend said that some 2,000 who were successful have had no choice but to hand their tickets back. The logistics were just too complicated. Privately, Liverpool fears some of its ticket holders will simply not be able to make it, either. UEFA, the competition's organizer, has applied pressure to the authorities in Kiev to try to ameliorate the situation, but remains deeply frustrated. In an interview with the Italian newspaper La Stampa last week, UEFA's president, Alexander Ceferin, pointed out that it was precisely to avoid situations like the brewing one in Kiev that he made it a priority to change the way the host of the Champions League final, UEFA's showpiece event, is chosen. Kiev, like Cardiff last year, did not have to go through a bidding process when it was selected 2 years ago, until Ceferin's reforms were instituted in 2017. Cities simply lobbied to be awarded a final. Often, the winner was chosen for political convenience as much as suitability. Sometimes that was not an issue. Milan in 2016, Berlin in 2015. Lisbon in 2014 and London in 2013 all were well equipped to host the event, but Cardiff, like Kiev, seems to struggle with the sheer scale of the final, and the influx of fans into a comparatively small city. Last year, for example, many fans had to stay in Bristol, an hour away in England, or catch special trains from Wales back to London. Ceferin is eager to make sure that does not happen again. Madrid, which beat out Baku, Azerbaijan, for the 2019 final, had to submit a full dossier, including details of its hotel infrastructure. Lisbon and Istanbul, which are vying to hold the 2020 final, have been required to do the same. Before, an executive simply said, "I want to give you the game," Ceferin said. Now you present a dossier and the most complete wins. Kiev is beautiful, yet you cannot even get a room under the stairs for hundreds of euros. I will propose in the future that hotel infrastructure is central to the decision, and that places where fans have to sleep in a garage are not chosen. That, however, gives UEFA another problem. The organization has been conscious for some time that only a dozen cities in Europe, at most, have both a stadium of the size required and the necessary logistical capacity to host the final smoothly. UEFA does not, however, want to find itself simply cycling between the same places every few years, further reinforcing the impression that the Champions League is a competition available to only a handful of countries. To alleviate that pressure, UEFA has privately discussed the idea of moving the final away from Europe occasionally, to New York, to Miami, to Doha. It even contemplated taking the annual Super Cup final outside of the continent as a trial run as early as 2020, but stepped back after objections from the organization's smaller member nations, who see that game as their only chance of hosting one of soccer's grandest occasions. The two great hurdles of taking the Champions League final to the Americas or Asia would, of course, be the time difference. Beijing and Tokyo most likely would be ruled out for that reason, and the costs for traveling fans. Those concerns have been powerful enough to see the conversation moved onto the back burner, but what has happened in Kiev this month may force it back onto the table. If fans are going to have to spend thousands of dollars supporting their team either way, does where they spend it matter? Besides, UEFA has another pressing concern: FIFA's attempts to expand its Club World Cup. If UEFA wants to keep its elite clubs happy, and overcome the temptation of billions from a rival competition, it may need to tap ever greater revenue streams. Hosting the Champions League final in the United States or the Middle East could be one way to do that. Garcia Melissid, to her relief, has found a place to stay in Kiev. Her story was eventually picked up by the Kiev Post, a local newspaper, and a journalist there has offered her and her friends lodging, free of charge. For her, a Real Madrid win on Saturday would make all of the stress worth it. What she and thousands of others have been through, though, has made it just a little bit more likely that there will one day be a Champions League final much closer to her home in Miami.